Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Dragonhill Games, and you're watching This Week in MTG Finance. As always, before we get started, I want to thank MTG Stocks for allowing us to use graphical information for the purposes of this video. There's been a lot of solid organic growth this week, mostly centered around Pioneer, so let's jump right into it, and we'll start right here with this guy, Ronis the Indomitable from Amonkhet. This guy's had a good run over the last couple of weeks or a month or so, up more than double its value. I mean, we were talking around the $5 range before the announcement of Pioneer, nearly $12 today. And the reason for that is just like I said, just good, solid organic demand. I mean, this guy's really good in any sort of deck that's just going to pound out quick, big creatures, right? I mean, having a 5/5 indestructible death touch for 3, I mean, what more could you ask for, right? He's a mana dump later in the game. So any sort of mono green strategy where we're going to race into something big, or Gruul takes really good advantage of a creature like this. So, it's no surprise we're seeing a $12 out of a card like this. I think it's unlikely we'd be seeing a reprint of Ronis anytime soon. I mean, he doesn't really slot into sort of the theme of Theros, so the only thing we might see him in next year is one of the Commander products. So I really do think he's probably got some ways to go yet. Might be a $20 card by the time all is said and done. But my position on Ronis right now would definitely be hold. And another one that's seeing some healthy growth over the last week or so is Brazenbar. I mean, we're up around $6 from where we were last week at this time. And the reason for that, again, is just demand, right? Like this Brazen Borrower and Questing Beast are basically the two chase mythics from Throne of Eldraine now that Oko Thief of Crowns is banned. I mean, Oko still has quite a bit of value, and it's still a great pull. You're never going to be unhappy to open an Oko. But of the cards that are getting played, definitely Brazen Borrower and Questing Beast are kind of the two winners from the set, right? And this card is just starting to see more play lately, right? It's showing up in Pioneer decks, in sort of Simic, sort of flashy kind of decks. It's always going to have a home in Control. And same thing in Standard, right? Like Simic Flash plays, can play up to 4 copies of this card, right? So I think this is a card that is going to be strong for the entire time that it's in Standard. And I would reevaluate this closer to rotation time. All right, and the next couple I have for you today are a couple that I'm moving out of positions I own in, and the first one is Triumph of the Hordes from New Phyrexia. And the reason that I'll be bringing these two to your attention today is because of upcoming reprints in the Mystery Booster local game store version that we'll be getting next March. I understand there's the whole slotting thing and nobody really knows, or at least there's a lot of speculation about how much of each sort of common and uncommon reprint from mystery boosters are actually going to end up in the marketplace. But the reality is, a card like this, Triumph of the Hordes, I mean, it is worth what it is because of demand in Commander. There's very few decks outside of Commander, some fringe modern stuff, but reality is there's very few decks outside of Commander that can make use of this card. It's just too slow, really, in any other format. And this card has only ever had the one printing, New Phyrexia. So, I mean, Mystery Booster will be basically its second printing. And it took a long time. This is a healthy growth chart, and it took a long time for the graph to look this way. This card came out before this graph even goes back that far, right? So we're talking about a long time for the amount of uncommons to get sort of used up and end up in people's collections. And I really don't think the price can support another influx of these cards, really, regardless how many there's going to be from the new Mystery Booster openings. So I do believe this is one that is definitely going to be taking a hit once some new sort of influx of these start coming into the market. All right, and the next one I have for you guys is Reliquary Tower. Really, it doesn't even matter what set this card's from. It's funny, this card is actually a good sort of bellwether card that displays the health of Commander. Right? I mean, this card really does only get played in Commander, right? But everybody has one in each of their Commander decks. It's just kind of a staple Commander card, right? And I mean, $3 for a card that's always been printed uncommon. And yes, I know if it's printed in a Commander deck, that might as well be a rare symbol or a mythic. It doesn't really matter, right? Because it only has one of each printing. But I mean, it's been printed out uncommon in Magic 2013, which was a big set. Core Set 2019, another big set, and then Conflux was the original printing. So it had quite a large printing in that set as well. And just for a card that's had this many printings in also sort of 3 you know, in standard type sets at the uncommon range, but a bunch of printings in various commander sets. For a card that's had this much printings and still be able to hold a value of $3 just speaks to how strong Commander actually is as a format. But Reliquary Tower is going to be getting another printing in Mystery Boosters. And then we're getting 7 more Commander products next year. So it's extremely likely that this will end up in at least a couple, if not sort of, you know, all of those Commander products, right? So, Reliquary Tower, honestly, no matter what version you have, if you have more than sort of what you need, selling extra copies at around the $3 mark is never going to be a bad plan. And before we get into cards I'm investing in this week, as always, I want to thank you if you're a subscriber. We really appreciate your support. And if not, now's a great time to hit that subscribe button. We post at least 2 videos every week. All right, and the first one I have for you guys under the buy category this week is Pithing Needle, specifically the one from Return to Ravnica. And the reason I say that is the other versions are already starting to get up there. 10th edition especially is around the $9 range, but the Magic 2010 and the Savior's Kamigawa are in the $7, $8 kind of range. But Return to Ravnica is lagging behind at the $5.75. This is just a really good card in the Pioneer format. I know there's some debate about whether, you know, what's better, Pithing Needle or Sorcerer's Spyglass. Sorcerer's Spyglass gives you the information of what's in your opponent's hand, but we're talking about double the mana for that. And that's a bit of a price to pay, especially with the speed, considering the speed of Pioneer. So for me, I'm in the camp of, you know, Pithing Needle is sort of my go-to shutdown card in my sideboard. And at $5.75, barring any reprint next year in one of the sets that we'll be getting there, I think this is a really good, solid investment. I think this card has a lot of legs yet still. Okay, and the next one I have for you today is Rally the Ancestors from Fate Reforged. I went ahead and built up a little bit of a position in this. I got a couple hundred copies when Pioneer was first announced, and I managed to get them around the 50-60 cent range. I was a little unsure about how this card would perform in Pioneer, so I went ahead and built a deck. I remember how strong it was back in the standard days, but I went ahead and built a sort of, you know, Aristocrats Pioneer deck very early on after Pioneer had been announced, and I wasn't happy with the performance of it, honestly. You know, it was just a little bit too slow for all the decks I was running into. It seemed to be one turn behind. I always had the next turn I was going to kill you kind of thing when you smash my face in with your mono red aggro. So I sort of gave up on the deck, but I've been doing a bit more research recently, and there's a couple of decks emerging, a Cheerios version that actually looks really strong. In fact, I'm going to be doing a deck tech on that this week. So if that's something that interests you, have a look for that. But, you know, at $2.11, I've already kind of made my money if I want to get out of this card. But I really do think that this card still has some legs. There's definitely a deck out there in Pioneer that is going to be really strong with a Rally the Ancestors sort of theme. And like I said, I'm going to be doing a deck tech on a Cheerios version of this, and I really do think that's a good solid deck. So I'm going to be doing some play testing, and I'll throw that out there this week. But regardless of whether or not that's the deck, there definitely is a Rally the Ancestors deck, and I think this card has the potential to at least double sort of where it is right now. So investing in this, even at these price ranges, picking up a playset or something, is definitely a good idea at around the $2 mark. And the last couple I have for you guys this week are rares, specifically from Throne of Eldraine, and we'll start here with Bone Crusher Giant. This card, I'm running into this card everywhere. It may not be well represented in sort of the, you know, the deck list showing, but this card is everywhere, and for good reason. This is just good value for red deck. It slots well into Grawl as well. To get removal and a big stompy sort of creature out of the same card for this sort of mana cost is just really good value. And, you know, as we're getting further and further away from Throne of Eldraine being sort of mass opened, we've got another couple of weeks, you know, going into the Christmas season. There's going to be a bit more opened around that time. And then, we're going to be all into Theros next year. And cards like these are going to be further and further away from getting opened. Bottomed out around the low $2 mark. And it's done nothing but going up from there. It actually hasn't had any sort of downside since early to mid-November. It's only been upside. And this graph is just going to continue to go up because this card is going to be played for the entire time it's in standard, and then it's going to keep continuing making a strong showing in Pioneer as well. So getting in around the $2.50 mark, I think, is the lowest you're going to see this card going forward. All right, and finally we have our speculation play for the week. That's right, and it's Lovestruck Beast from Throne of Eldraine. This card's never going to be cheaper than the dollar it's at now. It's done nothing but go up since the middle of October. It's making appearances all over in Standard in all types of Golgari adventure decks and various other adventure type decks. But it's also starting to show up in Pioneer. It's just a good value creature in the 3 mana slot. I mean, you get a 1/1 guy for 1 and then a 5/5 guy for 3. Yeah, he has some restrictions, but overall just a good value card. And for the same reasons as Bonecrusher Giant, we're getting further and further away from Throne of Eldraine being mass open, so it's going to be harder and harder to find these cards around $1. I really do think that this card has the opportunity or the chances to see $4 or $5 range, especially for the life of it in Standard. And for those reasons, it's our speculation play of the week. All right, I really hope you guys enjoyed this week in MTG Finance. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.